Good day, Melanie, and welcome to your Synastry reading. So I'm actually going to start by tapping into your Akashic record, just because it amuses me. So your Akashic record, if you don't know what that is the uh, energetic library, if you will, that hangs above the earth. And from the moment that any soul separates from source to start a life of its own, you get a book. This allows us to go back into the past, look into the present, or even into the future, because time only exists here on earth. So what I'm going to be doing is finding out what is the theme of this relationship, just because I love how everything comes full circle at the end. Whatever I tap into in the records or through the cards always comes through in astrology because the truth resonates at a certain vibration. It will always be found. It'll always be the same. So likely what this is going to do for you guys is connect a lot of dots about things that you know, but you don't know why you knew them, but it's just little synchronicities about your relationship. So let's get started. And then I'm actually going to flip from me to your chart on the screen so you can get familiar with it from that vantage point. We'll look at the synastry chart to get an idea of how your energies come together, and then we'll get into the composite chart, which I'll talk about more once we get there. So what is the theme of the relationship between Melanie and I think Steve? I'm like, I looked at it all day yesterday. Let me move my little thing out there. Steve. I named him Melanie Steve in your video or your chart thing. So what is the theme for Melanie and Steve's relationship in this life? What is the theme for their relationship in this life? Rest and sweetness and learning to go with the flow despite your fears. This is about learning to trust your own intuition. And I believe this is on both ends. I'm feeling here. Like you guys would come into each other's lives after you had had some pretty crappy relationships. And I think you'll be healing from the crappy relationships together, or that sort of kind of what the setup was here. I'm feeling. So the issues that you have to work out between each other was like not holding back, not holding back for fear of getting dumped or opening up to somebody that goes away, just learning to go with the flow and be yourselves. This is lovely, simple. When I was talking to you yesterday, I mentioned, I was like, your chart has a really good like energy. Like I feel like I'm about to do a positive relationship reading. Like this is going somewhere or will in the future. So let's see. Let's confirm this for you. I'm about to switch to the other screen. All right, so let's make this big. And then I'm going to get rid of this panel because I hate it. It's hideous, right? Oh, and me, do I need to be here? I'm usually hiding in the background. I don't know. Got stage fright suddenly. Okay, so I guess I'll just keep it. I gotta stop hiding behind the glass. I hate when I get messages during messages. So hide the meeting controls. There we go. All right, so your chart is represented on the inside, and Steve's chart is represented on the outside. You are a radio receiver. You can take in a message. You can also send out a message, right? The same with Steve. What these two layouts together tell us are how your radios receive each other's energy, how you pick up on each other's signals. Now, from my perspective, this allows me to see what you did in your past life, what your goals were in this life, how you get on each other's nerves, how you amp each other's up, what you're triggering each other, and then what you're healing in one another. These are the ingredients for the relationship. After we go over this full array here, we're going to take a quick look at your composite, because the composite is like the cake, whereas the synastry is the ingredients and like the recipe and the bake times. I guess that's just the recipe part, right? Like whatever's in the book, not the actual product. The composite is the actual product. Thanks. Look, you challenged me to find a new way to say that. So we're going to get started at your first house, since you are the focal point of this. And I'm going to explain how that meshes into his chart. And I'm just going to go around the whole thing. You're comfortable. So your first house, your ascendant, your rising, what you wanted to develop into this life, lands in his seventh house. His seventh house is the house of partnerships and marriage and contractual relationships. So that's where you wanted to end up. That's where you wanted to be. Uh, just to let you know off top, that's important, that you guys have a long-term commitment to each other. So you have Lilith in first. This means a lot of times you have issues with people. You don't know why you can have issues with people, right? It's something that you sort of wear on your sleeve. And look, it's in Gemini, it's in words. Hilarious. But in this life, Steve was sent towards this. Like he accepts this part of you, or he is meant to assist you with it. Ironically, it appears part of that ability that you have to express yourself verbally, I'm thinking of the best way to say it, comes from your past lives with him. Like before, that wasn't the case. You could not stand up for yourself. You would not speak up for yourself. And something about this relationship is enforcing that part of you. This could also mean that it started off a little taboo, or eventually it will get a little taboo in the bedroom area. Like maybe he likes being degraded and you just happen to fit into that area, is what I'm sensing here. But his vertex, which is his fated event in his life, is right next to his moon. That's his family energy, his past life energy. The thing that he wanted to happen again in this life is being a family with you. That was triggered as soon as he came into your energy field. That's where he's been headed this whole time. Like he doesn't care if you cuss him out for the rest of his life. He's sorry for what he did last time. You got it. You got it, sis. So that's great, because over here we have your Mercury in your second house. That means your mind is a part of how you make your money and your values, right? That is another thing that's in his eighth house. But in this case, it means you understand the things that he doesn't share with other people. You understand him psychologically. You understand his sometimes dark or brooding, secretive mind. It's like you have x-ray vision into his traumas, or the things that happened to him during childhood, the things that still affect him mentally. And that's actually where a lot of your healing energy is coming in towards him, to help with any mental, psychological, traumatic pressure that may be left within him. So the degradation things, like the bedroom king, but outside the bedroom, you make him feel better than anybody else, as far as like letting him be himself, because it feels like that was the issue for him here. That is backed up by the fact that his Jupiter, his growth, his expansion, how he will learn to develop in this life is through spending time with you at home, or having a home with you. This whole time before now, he's been stifled. And this started with the family he grew up in, stifled as a karmic development. Like maybe he had to learn how to wield his feelings, because last life his feelings were like bar none. Like if he felt this way, it was that, and that was it. Nobody else could have any opinion about it. In this life, he's been having to deal with other authority figures that are sort of like that, in order for him to understand not to do that. But when coming into contact with you, learning how to release some of those emotions, how to take some of that pressure off. Now, the beautiful thing here, another indicator that you're meant to have like a long-term relationship or marriage, is your union, which is your wedding asteroid, is right next to his Jupiter, which is his husband asteroid. Like the idea of commitment, maybe it happened to you before, maybe it didn't, but this one definitely stood out to you as something that was meant to be like a serious long-term relationship, right? So your Mars, which is your drive, also everything in your second house is what you're using for your gifts, or what you're meant to be using for your career, your healing abilities. They all land into the things that give him faith in this life, that help him finally feel like he's found his place. Your drive is in healing other people in general, emotionally particularly. So he landed in a pretty sweet space for himself. Now his Vesta is what he's been sacrificing this whole life. In this case, it's that emotional thing again. Usually I recognize in somebody's chart, there are at least 3 or more areas where a particular energy or thing is done. Like if you have Chiron and Gemini, which is like a difficulty with words, you'll probably have like other afflictions to your Gemini energy in at least 3 other ways, so that it's definitely locked in that you have difficulty with this pattern. It's just how it works here. And in this case, there's a block on him expressing his feelings which once again did not open till he moved into a place with you and he had to be away from the family that he was born into. So this is what, or the area that really stood out to me yesterday when I was telling you that your chart was on my screen. And I felt like it was a really good vibe off of it. So you are doing a thing where you guys are doing shadow work in the beginning, working through each other's stuff to ascend, essentially. I say that because this logo's here. This is your reconnection back to the Godhead. If you have a female one and you have a masculine energy and you see it come together in the chart, that means you guys are trying to tap back into the Trinity. Y'all are trying to raise up out of here at the end together. Your sun is right there. You shine a light on everything that he has been sacrificing in this life. It's in a way like he's been sacrificing all of this energy, all of this passion, all of this love until he came to you, so that when it comes out in like a pour to make up for what he did last time. And we ain't got to what he did last time, but clearly it was something big enough that he was willing to change his contract, or to make his contract to fall into perfect alignment with yours as a sorry. Like, give me another chance, another life, sweetie. So your sun and your Venus, which makes you naturally beautiful anyway, is right next to the part of him that needs to be lit up, his Christ spark. You bring God into his life, into his journey. It's like the love that he feels for you is going to feel like a blessing. Like, it is a blessing technically to him. And it's all about the way your mind works and the way that you support him mentally and the things that you say and the way that you connect and you teach him things that he did not learn before. Maybe even about compassion, about empathy. Because it doesn't feel religious. It feels very, very spiritual and very like. So next we have your actual healing energy, which is your Reiki in your fourth house, which possibly means you work from home, but you definitely heal people in your family, in his career house, in his reputation house. But with it being in the sign of Leo, it's like you repair his ego. You help him get out there and do what he needs to do in his career and feel like you got this, honey, because your Jupiter, your growth, your expansion, and your wisdom are in the sign of Virgo. You help organize the things or the pieces of him that make him feel like he can't do his best in his career. And this is just what you do for anybody who's in your household in general. Your experiences with helping other people get their shit together. Like, you recognize the system, you recognize what's wrong with it, and you can like zoom through it and like, hey, you need to do this, based on the fact that you've sort of been doing it for people in your family like your whole life. You had a in-home training as a child for what you were meant to do as a part of your career, which leads us to the fifth house. The fifth house is your unique expression, your children, your romances, and your love. In the case of Sinistry, is lining up in his house of wishes and dreams. He wanted to change the power struggles between you. It seems like he was just really anal. Like, you were a wife, and yeah, because I see the wife thing, but he treated you like a possession, which is cringe, right? But we're all learning. Everybody here had to start as an undeveloped soul, so nobody has a story that doesn't include villainy in it. But in this case, I want you to know what type of villain you're dealing with and why he's making it up so hard in this life, just so you get a full scope of everything going on here. So you were sort of I don't want to say trophied him, but he had a particular way that he wanted you presented all the time, like a perfectionist idea of what you needed to be. And that's what he wanted to change in his life. He wanted to change that quickly. Any damage he did to your self-esteem, the power struggles, the treating you like you were owned instead of loved is what I'm feeling. You wanted to change the way that your mind works. And it seems like maybe you went along with a lot of the things that were pushed upon you. And it feels like it was because of the time period and being a woman as well. But you could have had a handy spouse that didn't treat you like that, but it feels like that was the rarity. You got the typical successful man for this time period. And in this life, you wanted to make a change on your genius, on your healing abilities, on your ability to bounce back after somebody hurt you. So you didn't want to carry it on your sleeve as long as you were beforehand. This is a transformation of your power and your healing abilities. And these actually land in your hands, your ability to help with plants, animals, the physical body, to pick up on energy. You probably be really dope at like Reiki, a healer from home even. So over here now, we got your South Node. where you're coming from, right? Where you just left in the last life, in the sign of Libra, which is partnership, right? Which connects to his seventh house that I was telling you that's where you wanted to get back into this life, or where your charts lined you up. Because you could have a completely different plan for your life, and somebody over here could have been like, no, that's the one I want. I need a shot to holler, and then their chart will match up with yours. Just finding that out. Sometimes you don't choose it. Sometimes the other person does because they have to energetically, karmically speaking. If somebody wants to make something up for you, they get a shot. The Most High does not deny them. How it plays out, that's the I don't think there is a chart for that because even the synastry tells you how you work together and what you're working through and all that stuff. And the composite tells you like this is the cake, but it doesn't tell you how you're gonna eat the cake, how long the cake gonna last. So none of that. That is up to the people and how they work through the stuff that is still coming up from last life. You can't leave problem unsolved. It will be re-triggered in this life. Which is why it's important to mention that your South Node is in his 12th house. You're on the board of things that he wanted to clear out, things he wanted to make better. But for you, it's debts, things that were still lingering in your energy, things that were still bothering you that you wanted to fix. So clearing this relationship or clearing the damage that was done in this relationship off was important to you, particularly because you have your series, which is like your maternal energy, your nurturing instinct, your fated event, your soulmate marker, and your joie de vivre, your sexual energy, what arouses you, all conjunct Steve's ascendant. You are saving yourself for this relationship too. Yours was just way sneakier because yours is sort of set up like, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll just spend my life alone and I'll be okay by myself. But his popped up in your energy like, hey, I want to get it right this time so she won't end up by herself. We will be with each other every day, actively living, like walking and gardening. And like, no, he has a whole layout here where yours just says, if I am by myself, just as long as I have peace, I will give up everything else. Like you wanted to clear this off. And I say that because it's the South Node, it's the past, it's what you have to do. But you wanted to see if it possibly could work too, which is why you put an event here. You wanted to see if uh, understanding him better in this life because of what you had been through before you got to him would make it work this go round. Over here, we have your Neptune, which is another karmic marker, another dispositor for past life energy next to his Neptune. That's generational, so sometimes it's like that. But his sun being there is what matters. He is exactly who he was last life. Like he looks the same as he did last life. Did you feel like you knew him when you saw him? Like did something ping like, right? Because over here we got union, which is that wedding marker right next to Neptune and your seventh house cusp. If you're not already married, and I'm happy I don't know, you're supposed to be married. This is the person you're without a doubt supposed to be with or are aligned to be with because y'all was together last time. It just didn't go how y'all wanted it, and y'all couldn't leave to go home without getting it right. Like it was bothersome. This is backed up by the fact that your moon is next to his south node, past life family, healing that, reviving that from the dead because I had some asteroids on here from my other session. But when I went to put your info in and I saw how much it was impacting this reading, I was like, oh, this was for a reason. They needed to see these asteroids because this is a lot about healing your logos energy, your crystalla energy. Let me know if you want a link on that because it's on the Ascension Gallery, Ascension Glossary website, right? Information about the Hyros Gamos and how two people are bringing their energy back together to merge into one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are able to clearly see the merger or two becoming one in the composite chart. Because over here, his Mercury is in your seventh house. What's interesting about that is this is conjunct your moon, which brings back up any of those verbal or mental patterns from the last life. Y'all are working on growing beyond those ideas. And this can be in religion, philosophy, just your general beliefs about life because of your different experiences. But y'all are learning how to appreciate each other's experiences and come into a commonality. And then from there, building your own experiences together that sort of merge both belief systems. He's learning to lift out of his darkness and rise more into his light, more into his philosophical self, more into being in touch with his divine feminine, his inner feminine. So his Mars is next to his Riki. Sex is healing for him. I felt like that was important for me to tell you, but experiencing new things and new places, things that liberate him sexually as opposed to oppress, if you will. It's also means that his sexual energy is healing to you, which is why I believe it's in your eighth house of all your trauma and your heavy stuff. So while you're mentally healing him, he's technically doing the same for you, but on a more physical level, because Mars is his physical body and his energy comes through, especially when you guys are through 2 or more hours away from home or on vacation, or you live away from the families you came from. His love, his Venus, the way he expresses himself in his mind, the way he expresses himself to you in his thoughts, is your part of fortune, your sprinkle of luck. Like it grounds you, but also it's like he's really financially helpful, which has been the pattern for multiple lives. Like he's like, yeah, take my money, baby. I love what you do for my mind. I just like having you around. That's the energy that's given when it's landing in your eighth house. Very intense chemistry that feels like it's out of nowhere, but it's actually born of lifetimes of love and loss back and forth. So when y'all see each other, it's like even better because like I lost you last time. We're gonna try again this time. Let's do it. That's really what this is giving. So now we're at his family house, his IC, his Juno, which is his soulmate marker, his unique genius, his dark feminine energy, and his turning point all somehow end up in your reputation house, your career. Did y'all meet through friends? Or like through groups or common interests, common causes? Because it seemed like maybe you work from home and some of your work stuff drains into the house, but it changes stuff for him. It like gives him the household maybe he wanted when he was younger, because it looks like the one he grew up with was sort of like it might have been some illusionism, some drinking, some just like really hard to tie down the details on that life. Your household that you give him is eccentric, and it makes him, once we get air energy again, makes him think, makes him feel comfortable to be his freak self. And by freak, I mean just like weird thoughts, conspiracy theories, like aliens exist, like all those things that he wasn't allowed to, it appears, talked about when he was younger. Any parts of himself that he thought were weird, just you give him the freedom. But it's also because of what you do in your career that he feels okay with this space, whatever that job is and how that aligns. So his arrows, his joie de vivre is actually in the things that you guys end up doing in isolation when you're alone. And this is not even just sex, it's like the conversations, the feelings that are shared. There is a safe space within your relationship. What I do find interesting though, okay, is that here we have his fifth house. This is his freedom, his fun, his ability to express himself. That's where his Chiron is. That's his womb. That's why he has a hard time speaking up for himself, right? But it's also how he helps other people. Like if he recognizes anybody that has the same problem as him, even though he doesn't like recognize it as his issue, he's very in tune to helping somebody else express themselves or to make them feel better about having a hard time with it, right? But he's blocked in his self-expression karmically because of not knowing what to say out his mouth last life. But in this case, his Saturn being in your 11th house, it sort of blocks you from having friendships in a weird way. Like you are his friend, y'all are each other's friends. Something about being around other people last time really caused some issues. It might even in this life. And I'm gonna say that is backed up again because his Chiron, his wound is in your 11th house. That's issue with friends, like the people that caused you problems in other lives. They're coming back around in this life to play the same roles they did last time and maybe get an attitude. That's how I felt like this. Like, no, you're gonna have some ops, some people. Go to the ascensionglossary.com.net, that whatever, under spiritually activated couples. That's what you will have to deal with or are already dealing with. And that is also because your Chiron, your wound is in the 11th house. You have a hard time being yourself in groups of people, but that's his sprinkle of luck for you. Like something about you guys are just better in isolation or when other people aren't around. Like when y'all get to be with people for a little while, but not having them completely enmeshed in your lives. This is likely because that's my drum roll because we're at the end, right? Your North Node, where you want to be in this life, is isolation. It's by yourself, but it's in his sixth house of day-to-day life. So you will be individuals living as a couple, just with each other, just bound because of your Saturn. to his sixth house, his day-to-day life, to pay back the debt that he wanted for being a crappy, abusive partner in the last life. You have been sacrificing a lot of yourself in this life for this contract, to do what you do in your career, but also to have this relationship back or to get a shot at this relationship. So now we got to look at this composite right quick to see what the gag is. It's always the gag to see like what the rising is, because that tells you it's like the same thing as the natal chart, but it's the birth chart for the relationship. Like, what baby energetically did you guys make together? Leo's rising. And that's interesting because that's my actual like regular rising. So um which is royalty rising, but it's also like artist rising in your case here, because y'all are rising into being known in your career for your voices or your art or something that you do that is unique. And this could have something to do with your belief system or the belief system y'all come up with each other, like a healing modality. I'm feeling, because look at that second house. Holy shit. But then check this out. Anything that is in the same degree in your design is channeling into the same funnel. Like everything on here is a numeric station on the radio, like I was explaining to you. You see your Venus in 12th at the 12th degree and your ascendant at the 12th degree. So you guys are routed to go back to the Pleiades. That is backed up by the fact that Taurus rules the Pleiades, and that's where your midheaven is. Your midheaven is your idea of heaven on earth. But in this case, it's especially important because on this compass, you are routed from one place to another, and you are routed back to the Pleiades. So you'll go back to our artist colony. There is absolutely something artistic that you guys are supposed to discover that you do together at home, that y'all put out there in the world, and it just happens to work out. It might even slap overseas. Something about yourselves and your relationship. It could even be the message that comes through you guys that you don't even realize is coming through you guys because of that logos energy I was talking about here. It's in the 12th house of the unconscious. So you're going to be streaming something through yourselves, through your relationship with each other, that you don't even know is meant to help people, meant to help partners, meant to bring more love and light into this. So inspiration rising is what I would call this as a couple. Like whatever you guys have been through, whatever you guys make work for yourselves is meant to be symbolic of what love can do to other people. So yes, this life is about, now that we're full circle, oh my goodness. This life is about, as I said, rest and sweetness, finally being through the war and not rejecting stuff. I'm gonna show you rejecting because of fear, learning to go with the flow and trusting your intuition, because y'all have did it before and y'all agreed this time to get it right because y'all just want to go home. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, because no, this was awesome, and I look forward to somehow out in the world, because the 10th house is the house of fame and authority. I will see you if you have a North Node in 10, uh, as healers, as people who will provide a service to other people, as people who are a conduit for source, walking, talking flashlight. Have a good day, dear.